What's going on, everybody? It's ETAPRIME back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new N-Book Ultra from a company known as N-One. And really, what grabbed my attention about the new N-Book Ultra is the CPU they opted to use, or rather APU, plus the build quality. This is actually fully constructed of aluminum. It's CNC machined aluminum. We've also got a 16-inch 165Hz FreeSync display, and this is powered by the brand new RYZEN 8845HS. And I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with the performance and build quality here. We've got a massive trackpad, as you can see here, backlit keyboard, got that beautiful 16-inch display, and we'll be talking more about that in just a little bit. Again, it's fully constructed of aluminum. We've got upgradable RAM and storage here, and that's something I love to see. Now, it would be nice to have that really fast LP DDR5 RAM here, given that we're working with a Ryzen APU, but being able to take that RAM up just using SODIMM DDR5 does make life a lot easier down the road. Overall, I think it's a great looking machine, and I do really like this screen here. Now, I mentioned that this is a 165Hz FreeSync 16-inch display, but from the settings on the unit that I have, it's actually a 240Hz display, so I'm not sure if all of them are going to use that, or if this was a mistake. Not sure if their website's wrong or not, but just note, the unit that I have here does up to 240Hz, which is a little odd, but I mean, it's really nice to have. When it comes to I/O, over here on the right-hand side, we've got a 3.5mm audio jack and two full-size USB 3.2 Gen 2 ports. Moving over to the left-hand side, we've got our charger input, so it does use a barrel jack, but you can also charge this over USB Type-C, full-size HDMI, and two USB Type-C 3.2 ports. I was really hoping we had USB 4 here so we could connect an eGPU, but unfortunately these are USB-C 3s. Now we can actually do up to 4 displays with this unit. We can utilize the built-in screen itself, connect an external display over HDMI, and 2 more over these USB Type-C ports. And when it comes to the overall specs of the N-Book Ultra, for that APU, we've got that Ryzen 8845HS, and this will do up to 50 watts max in here, at least with the settings they have installed. You can use a third-party app and take it up a bit more. Cooling system is actually really nice. We've got 8 cores, 16 threads, all based on Zen 4. Base clock of 3.8 GHz and a boost up to 5.1. Built-in Radeon 780M graphics up to 2700 MHz, and of course these are based on RDNA 3. We can do up to 64 gigs of SODIMM DDR5 at 5600 MHz. I've got 32 gigs installed here running in dual channel. A 2280 M.2 SSD, 16-inch, 165Hz, 2560 by 1600 IPS display. It supports VRR, it's 100% sRGB, 10-bit color gamut, and up to 500 nits of brightness. I've also got an 83 watt-hour battery with 100 watt PD fast charging, Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.2, and Windows 11 Pro. One of my favorite features here is this oversized trackpad. I mean, it's absolutely massive. We've got multi-gesture support, and it's super accurate. Now, it's not a glass-coated trackpad or anything like that, but it's nice and slidey, works out just fine. The keyboard here actually feels much better than I thought it would, and it is backlit. We've got 3 different brightness adjustments, and it's just a single-zone white LED. A lot of the time when we see these APU-powered laptops, they're usually using a U variant, but they opted for that HS in here. It is going to pull a lot more power, but we do have some power profiles that we can actually use. By pressing Function and Q, we can get into those profiles. It's also going to adjust the fan speed. So the first one here is Office. This is actually 35 watts. We'll press it one more time. It'll bring us up to Balanced mode, up to 45 watts. And finally, we've got what they're calling Turbo mode or Beast mode on their website, which brings it up to 50 watts. And of course, at 50 watts, it will be pulling a lot more power, but their cooling system actually handles 50 watts just fine. Dual 150 blade fans here, 11mm heat pipe, and they are using Honeywell 7950 thermal grease underneath that APU. At 50 watts, yeah, it does get a bit loud, but it's nothing like a gaming laptop because we're not cooling off a 150 watt dedicated GPU here. Just, 50 watt TDP across the board. And just in balanced mode, which you're going to get great performance out of it like that, you can't hear the fans at all. It's actually nice and quiet. So I did show you that this was running at 240 Hz, but another thing I wanted to show you here was just our AMD settings. Again, we've got a variable refresh rate display. It does support FreeSync, so if you go over to our gaming mode here or find a game, you can see that FreeSync is set to AMD optimized. You can turn it on or off, but this is great for those games that just won't reach 60 FPS on this APU. You're not going to get any kind of screen tearing, and the screen will adjust itself to the frame rate you're running in that game. And with the 8845HS, even in their office mode, which is a 35-watt TDP, doing normal tasks, it's going to work out fine. You want to do some email checking, web browsing, document editing. 4K video playback works out perfectly on this laptop, and while we don't have a 4K display, I still like taking it up to 4K 60. We also have HDR enabled here. I'm at 2560 by 1600 with the resolution of the display. 0 drop frames throughout while streaming this on YouTube. Another thing that this laptop features is quad speakers. So we've actually got 2 upward-facing speakers, 2 downward-facing speakers, and unfortunately this video here does have copyrighted music, so when we get over to the gaming portion, we will be using the built-in speakers, but it does get pretty loud. It's a nice, clean sound. Time to check out some benchmarks that I ran on this unit, and the first one here is Geekbench 6, single core 2319, multi 12232. Falling right in line with other devices using the same chipset. I also ran PC Mark. We got a 6,830 total score here. I also ran some GPU benchmarks here using 3D Mark. Night Raid coming in with a 30,336. Firestrike looking pretty good here with a 7,912. And the final one we have is Time Spy, and we managed a score of 3,315. Now, if we did have LPDDR5X RAM here running at, 64, 68, or 75, we could get a much higher score here. But this thing is trucking right along with that 5600 megahertz RAM. And these benchmarks are looking great, but they're synthetic. So let's check out some gaming on this thing. And the first one we have here is Helldivers 2, 1200p low with FSR set to performance. We're getting an average of 83 FPS with this game, and usually when I test this game, I have FSR set to balanced, and that's because we're usually on a 16:9 aspect ratio display. We can go down to 900p, but at 1200p, this game is doing a really great job on this laptop. I figured I'd have to take that resolution on down from 1200p, but with that FSR at performance, it's looking great. I also ran the built-in benchmark for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, and this is one of those games that just has a ton of settings that you can change. It optimizes itself if you need it to, and it does a pretty decent job with these APUs, especially Ryzen 8000. We're at 1200p, balance preset, FSR set to balanced, and we got an average of 112 FPS and a low of 76. So this is another one that's really playable on this laptop. Mortal Kombat 1 for the fighting game I like to throw in, 1200p, low, FSR, set to balance. The developers have been kind of optimizing this for these APUs, really because of the Steam Deck. I don't think we'd see this kind of performance if the Steam Deck wasn't a thing, but it's running at 60. Every once in a while, got to dip down to around 59, but it's something I'd never notice without that frame counter on screen. Fighting games on the 8845HS do great. Stuff like Street Fighter 6, Injustice 2, it's going to run it at full speed. Here's Forza Horizon 5, 1200p medium, no scaling, so I'm not using FSR, I'm not using Fidelity CAS. We're seeing an average of 112 FPS, and if we took this down just a little bit, we could lock this at 120 and have a really good time with it. Or if you just want to save some power on battery, you can always set the refresh rate of the display to 60 Hz, lock this one down, and it will run just fine. The final game we have here is Cyberpunk 2077. 1200p low, FSR set to performance. While it's not as good as some other systems that we've seen with these RDNA 3i GPUs, it is on up there. We got an average of 71 FPS, and with faster RAM, like I mentioned, LPDDR5X at even 64, we could probably manage around 78 with this, but it's still really great given what we've got here. Battery life is going to be really important on a laptop like this, and remember we've got an 83 watt-hour battery here with 100 watt PD fast charging. And through my initial test, I've come up with kind of an average for a few different things that people do with their laptops. With 100% screen brightness, it looks like we're going to get about 7 hours of HD video playback on the built-in screen, 5 hours of web browsing, and around 3 hours of 3D gaming. Now, if you're into indie gaming, you can get much more than this. I'm talking about 3D games that we've taken a look at. And of course, taking the brightness down, going to office mode, and even running your games at a lower frame rate will net you more battery life out of this. But it's looking great. And as for CPU temps, Through all of my testing, even running this in turbo mode up to 50 watts while playing 3D games, maximum CPU temp that I saw here using hardware info was 83 degrees Celsius, and this thing thermal throttles at around 95 degrees Celsius. So it might sound hot to some people there, but when we're talking about laptops like this nowadays, this is actually on the lower side of things. Truthfully, going into this, I wasn't expecting that much. Now, while I've heard of N-One, I haven't seen anything major from them, but I'm really impressed by what they've done here. Now, it's not a full-fledged gaming PC, but obviously we can get some AAA gaming done on this thing. Pretty decent battery life for what we have, and a full aluminum chassis here, which does feel premium. Coming in at a much lower price than the big name guys, I think they've done a really great job with the N-Book Ultra. And if you're interested in learning a little more, I will leave some links in the description, but that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you've got any questions or you want to see anything else running on the N-Book Ultra, just let me know in the comments below. And like always, thanks for watching.